Okay, I'm just going to briefly mention that if you had to do a quick sketch of the region in question, you might think of, well, y equals e to the x is this exponential function right here that goes through the point 0, 1 and up towards infinity. This 5, which is next to the x, introduces a horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/5. In other words, any point on the blue graph is moved this way by a factor of 1/5. Sort of looks like a horizontal stretch, but it really causes, a vertical stretch, but it really causes a horizontal shrink. And then if you add this 4, it just moves this red graph up 4. And so the region that you want to revolve about the x-axis is this region right here. Okay, that graph looks pretty messy, so let's go to one that looks a little bit cleaner. Here's y equals e to the 5x plus 4. Notice it goes through 0, 5. And over here, f of 1/2 is about 16.18. You really don't need to know that. I'm going to apply the disk method. We're going to revolve this typical rectangle about the x-axis, so you get what looks like a coin with a radius of r. So pi r squared is the area of the base of that disk multiplied by its width, dx, and you get the volume of that disk. And we're going to integrate from 0 to 1/2 to get the sum of all those volumes. So there's the integral, the definite integral that evaluates the volume of the solid that's created. To get the antiderivative, we first square that binomial, then take an antiderivative term by term. You could picture u substitution if you wanted to. Put u equals 10x for that first term, so du equals 10 dx, so you have to introduce a 10 or a 1/10 out front. So that's the antiderivative of e to the 10x, 1/10 of e to the 10x. There's the antiderivative of 8e to the 5x. There's the antiderivative of 16x. We're going to evaluate that from 0 to 1/2 multiplied by pi. Here's what that looks like. Looks like 127.65 as an approximation for the volume. Here's what it looks like with 1/2 substituted into the antiderivative minus 0 substituted into the antiderivative. If you get a common denominator and add, actually this becomes a minus and this becomes a minus, you get 63/10 for those three terms right there. This is an exact answer. If you wanted to, you could get a common denominator, write it as one fraction. And again, that's an approximate answer. Okay, there you go. Hope that helped. If you have any questions, post a comment.